Alan Turing was a mathematician during the 20th century, and while he did a lot of pretty cool things, I would like to focus today on his work on the bombe, as well as a few notes from his personal life. The bombe was a device used to crack the German Enigma code. And the German Enigma code was an encryption code that the Germans used to encrypt their messages to one another. And cracking the German Enigma code had been done before Turing. The Polish had created the Polish bombe previously, and it was successfully able to crack the German Enigma code. But because of this, Germany had furthered their encryption capabilities on the Enigma code. The version of the Enigma code that was used during World War II had possible permutations up to 10 to the 114th power, approximately. Turing was brought on to this project to break this more advanced Enigma code by the British government. Their main goal in this was to decipher German naval Enigma codes. Because Britain is completely surrounded by water, it was very important to them to be able to import and export goods by way of boat without naval interference from the Germans. By the time Turing was able to perfect this British version of the bombe, the device was able to find the correct Enigma setting in as little as 15 minutes on a good day. Turing got a lot of praise for this, as it gave the Allies a very strong upper hand in World War II. Eisenhower even estimated that it had shortened the length of the war by 2 years, saving up to millions of lives. Here are two pictures of slightly different versions of the bombe. They both work essentially the same way. They both have rotors in them, these discs, as you can see here, that rotate. They rotate around, and around all of the discs there are letters. So as they rotate, they're selecting a certain letter that they put into the message, trying to decrypt it. The main technique that they used in order to decrypt these is they would look for key terms that they knew that the Germans would be using, such as war terminology or statements about the weather, things that they knew would be important and that they would have to talk about. They would use those keywords and try to match them up with the encrypted messages and try to find the correct permutation of the encryption. And then they would be able to decrypt everything else once they found that correct permutation. Now, after Turing had finished his work with the bombe, he continued working with the government for a while, up until 1952, where he was robbed by someone he knew, a former sexual partner of his, a man. And Turing did not have shame in this. He never denied the fact that he was gay. He wouldn't flaunt it per se, but if questioned about it, he would talk about it freely. So he is robbed by this man, and he calls the police to report a crime. And the police show up, and they ask him a series of questions about the robbery, one of which being, do you know who robbed you? And he says yes, because he does. He explains everything to them, that the robber in question was a former partner of his, and they then arrest him for what they would call gross indecency. And that was the terminology they used for sexual relationships of men. So, after being arrested, Turing is eventually given the choice between going to prison or enduring chemical castration. And because Turing did not want to go to prison, he chose the chemical castration. And the term chemical castration here is referring to a sort of forced hormone therapy or hormone treatment. Essentially, they injected him with a synthetic female hormone that they called silbestrol, which is not used anymore because it's been found to cause cancer. But the main thing they were going for with injecting that into him was impotency. They wanted him to lose sexual interest or the ability to have sex in general. Because if he has no sexual feelings towards anyone, that means he's not having sexual feelings towards men, and therefore their goal is achieved. Some of the side effects of this hormone are things like breast development, things that we sometimes see in natural hormone imbalances, gynecomastia. It's essentially that, but instead of a natural occurrence, it's a synthetic hormone being injected causing the hormone imbalance. And there's also side effects of depression. It's debatable whether the depression is caused by the hormone itself or by the negative mental impact of seeing your body go through these kinds of changes. Either way, it's been found to be a side effect, among many others that are not listed here. 2 years after Turing was arrested, give or take, he was found dead in his home. The government ruled it a suicide by him eating a cyanide-laced apple, which is not very far-fetched. He was known to eat an apple most nights before bed. And he also had access to cyanide. He had a small lab nearby to his bedroom that had cyanide in it. And while it was ruled a suicide, there is speculation that it could have been an accident. Either he was working on his lab before he went to bed, and he was working on the cyanide and either accidentally spilled it onto or somehow got it into the apple without noticing and then ate it. Or it may have just been that he inhaled it somehow, as they never quite tested whether or not it was inhaled or ingested. So it could be either. The third possibility, the third theory that exists is that he was murdered or assassinated by the British Secret Service for being a threat to national security. At the time, homosexual men were viewed as a threat to national security. And whether or not this theory is true, it can be proven that he was viewed as a threat. He lost all of his security clearances. He lost his job in the government, never allowed to work in government again. So, knowing that, it is possible. Maybe not likely, but we might never know. With that, that is the end of my slides and the end of my video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.